The Whispering Woods and the Lost Stardust. Welcome, dear dreamers, to a world woven with starlight and whispered secrets. Tonight, we journey to a place where the trees hum ancient tunes and the air itself sparkles with magic. So snuggle in, close your eyes, and let our story begin. Chapter 1. Elara and the Moonpetal Meadow. In the heart of the Whispering Woods, where the oldest trees touched the very clouds and the rivers sang lullabies to the pebbles, lived a young girl named Elara. Her home was a tiny, moss-covered cottage nestled beside the Moonpetal Meadow. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of lavender and rose, the moon petals would begin to glow. They weren't ordinary flowers. Each one held a tiny drop of captured moonlight, making the meadow shimmer like a spilled jar of fireflies. Elara loved the Moonpetal Meadow more than anything. She would spend hours there, listening to the gentle ding-dong of the moon petals as they swayed in the breeze, imagining what secrets the moonlight held within them. She had hair the color of warm honey and eyes that sparkled like the first stars of evening. Elara wasn't like the other children in the nearby village of Whisperwind. While they chased butterflies and played hide and seek, Elara preferred the quiet company of the woods. She knew the names of every ancient tree, understood the language of the babbling brook, and often felt as though the very air whispered secrets just for her. One particular evening, as the first silvery sliver of the new moon appeared, Elara noticed something unusual. One of the largest moon petals, nestled deep within the meadow, wasn't glowing. It was dull and lifeless, its petals drooping as if it were terribly sad. This had never happened before. Every moon petal in the meadow had always glowed, bright and true, since time immemorial. Elara approached it cautiously, her heart filled with a strange mixture of curiosity and concern. As she reached out a gentle hand, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer of gold dust floated from the moon petal, disappearing into the twilight air. It felt as if the meadow itself held its breath. Chapter 2. The Whispering Wind's Secret. Elara couldn't shake the image of the dim moon petal from her mind. That night, as she lay in her cozy bed, snuggled under a quilt embroidered with constellations, she stared out her window. The Whispering Woods truly lived up to its name tonight. The wind seemed to be speaking, rustling through the leaves in a rhythm that sounded almost like words. Lost. Lost. stardust, it seemed to sigh. Elara sat up, her heart giving a little flutter. Was she imagining things? She had always felt a connection to the woods, a sense that it was alive and aware, but never had it spoken so clearly. She slipped out of bed, her bare feet padding softly on the wooden floor, and went to the window. The moon was higher now, casting long, dancing shadows through the trees. She leaned closer, pressing her ear to the cool glass. The whispering intensified, as if the wind itself was trying to tell her something urgent. Lost. Stardust. From the Great Weaver. The heart of the woods. Fading. Elara gasped softly. The Great Weaver was a legend, a mythical being said to weave the starlight into the very fabric of the world, sprinkling the leftover dust into magical places like the Moonpetal Meadow. If the stardust was lost, and the heart of the woods was fading, what could that mean? She thought of the dim moonpetal, and a cold knot formed in her stomach. The glow of the moon petals was fading. Could it be connected? She knew, deep in her heart, that she had to find out. The fate of the Moonpetal Meadow, and perhaps even the Whispering Woods, seemed to depend on it. Chapter 3. The Ancient Map and the Lumina Moth. The next morning, Elara knew what she had to do. She remembered an old, rolled-up parchment that her grandmother, a wise woman who had taught Elara much about the magic of the woods, had kept tucked away in a hidden drawer. Her grandmother had always said, "Some maps lead to places, Elara, but the best maps lead to understanding." Elara carefully pulled out the drawer, her fingers tracing the intricate carvings on its front. Inside, beneath bundles of dried herbs and smooth river stones, lay the map. It was made of aged parchment, brittle and smelling faintly of dried lavender and forgotten adventures. As Elara unrolled it on her small wooden table, intricate lines and symbols glowed faintly. It wasn't a map of paths or rivers, but of energy flows and magical places within the Whispering Woods. In the very center, marked by a swirling pattern of starlight, was a symbol she recognized, the heart of the woods. And beside it, in tiny, luminous script, were the words, "The Stardust Repository, protected by the Lumina Moth." Just as she read the words, a soft glow emanated from a nearby shelf. A moth, unlike any she had ever seen, fluttered into view. Its wings were iridescent, shimmering with all the colors of the rainbow, and its body pulsed with a gentle, warm light. It was a Lumina Moth. Her grandmother had told her stories of these rare creatures, guardians of ancient magic, who would only appear when something truly important was about to happen. The moth landed gently on the map, its light highlighting a specific path leading towards the heart of the woods. It was clear, the Lumina Moth was her guide. Chapter 4. Through the Glimmering Glade. With the Lumina Moth dancing ahead, its gentle glow illuminating the way, Elara set off. The woods around her seemed different today. The air felt charged with anticipation, and every rustle of leaves seemed to hold a secret. Her journey began by leading her through the Glimmering Glade, a place Elara rarely visited, for it was said to be where ancient spirits communed. Here, the moss on the trees sparkled like tiny emeralds, and the very air seemed to hold faint, shimmering particles. The path was narrow, winding between ancient trees whose branches intertwined overhead, forming a natural archway. Sunlight filtered through in dappled patches, making the forest floor look like a tapestry woven with light and shadow. The Lumina Moth, always a few paces ahead, seemed to know exactly where to go, pausing occasionally to allow Elara to catch up, its light a beacon in the sometimes dim forest. As they ventured deeper, Elara noticed that some of the glimmering moss was dull, losing its sparkle, much like the moonpetal in the meadow. A sense of urgency grew within her. This wasn't just about one moonpetal. The magic of the woods itself was threatened. She remembered her grandmother's words. The woods are a living tapestry, Elara. When one thread frays, the whole pattern weakens. She tightened her grip on the small satchel she carried, filled with dried berries and a flask of fresh spring water. Her adventure had truly begun. Chapter 5. The River of Whispers and the Sleepy Willow. The Glimmering Glade eventually led Elara to the River of Whispers. Its waters flowed with a serene grace, clear as crystal, and it was said that if you listened closely, you could hear the river sharing the secrets it had gathered from all corners of the woods. On the opposite bank stood the Sleepy Willow, an ancient tree whose branches draped so low they touched the water, looking like long, green hair cascading into the river. The Lumina Moth hovered expectantly. Elara knew the Sleepy Willow was special. It was rumored to hold the dreams of the forest creatures, gently rocking them to sleep with its long branches. But today, the willow looked tired. Its branches seemed heavier, and the leaves, usually a vibrant green, were a duller shade. It wasn't rustling its branches in its usual comforting way, it seemed almost still. "Hello, sleepy Willow," Elara whispered, feeling a pang of sympathy. The river gurgled softly in response, and a single, shimmering teardrop of dew fell from one of the willow's branches into the water, sending out tiny, glowing ripples. Elara knew she had to cross the river, but there was no bridge. She looked at the Lumina Moth, which gently pulsed its light towards the water. Suddenly, she understood. The river wasn't just water, it was alive. She had to ask for passage. "River of Whispers," Elara said, her voice soft but clear. "I seek the heart of the woods to help the moon petals and the magic that fades. Will you grant me safe passage?" Quote. Slowly, incredibly, a path of glowing, stepping stones, made of ancient, moss-covered stones, rose from the river's depths, forming a perfect bridge to the sleepy willow's bank. With a grateful heart, Elara stepped onto the first stone, the Lumina Moth fluttering patiently by her side. Chapter 6: The Grumbling Grotto and the Crystal Tears. After crossing the River of Whispers, the Lumina Moth led Elara to a hidden entrance, almost entirely concealed by twisting vines and thick moss. It opened into what was known as the Grumbling Grotto. The name came from the low, resonant rumble that echoed within its depths, a sound said to be the grotto itself complaining about the slow drip of time. Inside, the air was cool and damp, and the only light came from strange, luminous crystals that hung from the ceiling like delicate icicles. Some of these crystals pulsed with a soft, inner glow, casting beautiful patterns on the grotto walls. But Elara noticed that many of them were dark, their light extinguished. These were the crystal tears, formed from the purest spring water and infused with the grotto's ancient magic. Their fading meant the grotto was also suffering. The grumbling sound was indeed present, a deep, continuous hum that seemed to vibrate through the very stone beneath her feet. "It's even sadder than the sleepy willow," Elara murmured, tracing her fingers along a cold, dark crystal. "Everything is fading." The Lumina Moth, however, seemed undeterred. It fluttered towards a small, shallow pool in the center of the grotto, where crystal clear water gathered. It circled the pool 3 times, then landed on a smooth, flat stone beside it. Elara knelt down, peering into the water. At the very bottom, half buried in the smooth pebbles, she saw a faint, almost invisible shimmer. It was the same golden dust she had seen float from the moonpetal. It seemed the lost star dust was not just disappearing, but collecting in these sacred places, causing them to dim. But how to gather it? Chapter 7. The Puzzle of the Echoing Stones. Leaving the Grumbling Grotto, Elara and the Lumina Moth continued their journey deeper into the heart of the woods. The path became less distinct now, winding through thicker undergrowth and past trees that seemed even older and more imposing than any she had seen before. Finally, they arrived at a clearing where a circle of ancient stones stood, half hidden by moss and thyme. This was the puzzle of the echoing stones. Each stone was tall, rough-hewn, and bore a unique, glowing symbol carved into its surface: a swirling galaxy, a crescent moon, a leaping stag, a soaring eagle, a deep root, a blossoming flower. When Elara spoke, her voice echoed back to her, creating a strange, haunting sound. She remembered her grandmother's stories about these stones. It was said that they guarded the path to the true heart of the woods, and only those who understood the balance of nature could unlock their secret. The Lumina Moth, instead of guiding her directly, began to flit between the stones, landing on one, then another, as if trying to show her a sequence. Elara watched intently, trying to decipher the moth's silent language. It landed on the crescent moon, then the swirling galaxy, then the deep root, then the blossoming flower, and finally the soaring eagle. It seemed to represent a cycle: the moon's light nurturing the cosmos, the roots anchoring the earth, the flower blooming from it, and the eagle soaring above it all. Elara took a deep breath. She had to touch them in the correct order, or the path would remain hidden. Carefully, she pressed her hand against the crescent moon stone. It glowed brighter and a soft hum resonated. Then the swirling galaxy, which pulsed with light. Then the deep root, which vibrated beneath her fingers. The blossoming flower, which opened with a gentle chime. Finally, the soaring eagle. As she touched the last stone, a low rumble filled the air, and a section of the forest floor within the stone circle began to descend, revealing a hidden stairwell, bathed in a soft, welcoming light. Chapter 8. The Great Weaver's Loom and the Fading Stars. Elara descended the hidden stairwell, the Lumina Moth circling above her head like a tiny, living star. The air grew warmer, infused with a strange, sweet scent, like ozone and honeysuckle. At the bottom, she stepped into a cavern so vast it seemed to stretch into infinity. This was it, the legendary domain of the Great Weaver. In the center of the cavern stood the most magnificent loom Elara could ever imagine. It wasn't made of wood or metal, but of pure starlight, woven with threads of shimmering light. This was the Great Weaver's loom, where the very fabric of the cosmos was created, and where the light of the stars was spun into being. She could see shimmering, golden particles, the star dust, gently floating around the loom, some of it catching on the ethereal threads. But just as the whispering wind had warned, something was wrong. Many of the luminous threads on the loom were dim, almost gray. The rhythm of the loom, usually a vibrant, powerful hum, was slow and hesitant, like a tired heart. The air felt heavy, and the usual cascade of fresh star dust was barely a trickle. The magic of the whispering woods, and indeed, the starlight of the world, was fading because the Great Weaver was weak. Suddenly, a voice, ancient and soft as a sigh, filled the cavern, seeming to come from the very air around her. "Welcome, child of the woods. You have heard the whispers. You have seen the fading. Elara looked around, but saw no one. The voice was everywhere, yet nowhere. "Great Weaver," she whispered, her voice trembling with awe. "Yes," the voice replied. It sounded like the gentle rustling of a million distant stars. "The heart of the loom weakens. My threads grow thin. The star dust is scattered and cannot return to me." Chapter 9. The Tale of the Scattered Spark. The Great Weaver's voice continued, unraveling a story as old as time itself. Centuries ago, a magnificent star, brighter and bolder than any other, chose to burst forth in a grand display, showering the cosmos with its brilliant dust. Most of this star dust was gathered by my loom, woven into new stars, new dreams. But a single, powerful spark, imbued with a touch of pure, wild magic, fell to your world. Elara listened, captivated. The Lumina Moth gently brushed against her cheek, as if understanding the gravity of the tale. This spark of star dust, unlike any other, refused to be reabsorbed. It loved your world too much. It settled in the heart of the Whispering Woods, becoming the very essence of its magic. It fed the moon petals. It brightened the glimmering glade. It allowed the crystal tears to form. And it made the sleepy willow's dreams so vivid. But with time, and without the great weaver's constant connection, its power began to disperse, scattering into the earth, unable to find its way back to the loom. The weaver sighed, a sound like a distant, fading comet. The magic of your woods is nourished by this special star dust. Without its return, my loom weakens, and the source of its nourishment diminishes. The moon petals dim because their source of light is failing. The woods are fading, child, because their connection to the stars is slowly breaking. Elara finally understood. The lost star dust wasn't just missing. It was trapped, scattered in the magical places of the woods, unable to flow back to its source. It was like a precious river that had lost its way home. Chapter 10. The Collector's Compass. How can I help, Great Weaver? Elara asked, her voice filled with determination. She couldn't bear the thought of the Whispering Woods losing its magic. The cavern shimmered, and a small, intricately carved wooden compass materialized in the air, floating gently towards Elara. It was made of an ancient, dark wood, polished smooth by time, and its needle, instead of pointing north, pulsed with a soft, golden light. This is the Collector's Compass, the weaver's voice explained. It was crafted by the first guardian of the woods. It will guide you to the scattered stardust. The Lumina Moth knows the path, but the compass will draw the dust to it, allowing it to be gathered once more. You must visit the places where the magic has faded, and let the compass guide the dust back to this chamber. Only then can I reweave it into the loom. Elara carefully took the compass in her hand. It felt warm and vibrant, almost alive. She looked at the Lumina Moth, which landed gently on the compass, its own light intensifying the golden glow. The task seemed enormous, but Elara felt a surge of courage. She had been chosen, and she would not fail the Whispering Woods. She knew the way back to the dim moonpetal, to the tired sleepy willow, to the grumbling grotto with its fading crystals. She would retrace her steps, and with the help of the Collector's Compass and her loyal Lumina Moth, she would gather the scattered stardust and bring it home. The fate of the Whispering Woods rested on her small, brave shoulders. Chapter 11, Retracing Steps, the Grumbling Grotto Revisited. With a renewed sense of purpose, Elara and the Lumina Moth began their journey back. Their first stop was the Grumbling Grotto, where the crystal tears had dimmed and the low rumble seemed almost mournful. The air was still cool and damp, and the scattered, dark crystals looked even sadder in the dim light. Elara walked to the small pool in the center of the grotto, where she had first seen the faint shimmer of stardust. She held the collector's compass steady in her hand. Its golden needle began to spin gently, then settled, pointing directly at the water. As she held it over the pool, the compass began to hum with a soft, vibrant energy. Slowly, almost magically, tiny golden specks of light began to rise from the depths of the pool. They swirled and danced, drawn by the compass's pull, like tiny fireflies drawn to a lamp. They floated upwards, forming a delicate, shimmering stream, and were gently absorbed into the heart of the compass, making its golden glow intensify. As the stardust rose from the water, Elara noticed a subtle change in the grotto. One of the darker crystal tears above them began to glow faintly, a tiny flicker of light returning. The Grumbling Grotto seemed to sigh, but this time, it felt less like a complaint and more like relief. Elara continued to hold the compass until the last visible speck of stardust had been drawn from the pool. The air in the grotto felt lighter, and a few more crystal tears pulsed with renewed light. It was working. She felt a thrill of hope deep within her. The journey was long, but she was making a difference. Chapter 12, The Sleepy Willow Awakens. Next, Elara and the Lumina Moth arrived at the River of Whispers. The sleepy willow on the opposite bank still looked a little wary, its branches hanging low. Elara remembered how the river had granted her passage before, and she knew she would need its help again. River of Whispers, she called out. I have returned to gather the scattered stardust and bring it home to the Great Weaver. Will you help me again? Quote. Once more, the glowing stepping stones rose from the river's depths, creating a path to the willow's bank. Elara crossed carefully, the Lumina Moth fluttering reassuringly beside her. She stood before the ancient sleepy willow, holding the collector's compass up towards its majestic trunk. The compass pulsed, its golden light reaching out to the tree. And then, something truly wonderful happened. From deep within the willow's bark, tiny golden motes of light began to emerge. They floated up, like shimmering pollen, drawn by the compass's magic. As the stardust was drawn from the willow, its leaves began to regain their vibrant green. A gentle rustling, like a contented sigh, rippled through its branches. It wasn't just waking up, it was revitalized. The air around the willow seemed to shimmer, and Elara could almost hear faint, happy dream sounds emanating from its revitalized branches. The sleepy willow was no longer tired. It was gently swaying, looking more majestic than ever. The collected star dust flowed into the compass, which now glowed even brighter, a tiny beacon of returning magic. Chapter 13. Renewing the Glimmering Glade. From the River of Whispers, Elara and the Lumina Moth journeyed back through the Glimmering Glade. This time, Elara wasn't just passing through, she was actively seeking out the scattered star dust. The Lumina Moth flew slowly ahead, indicating areas where the moss was dullest, where the air felt heaviest, where the shimmer had faded the most. Elara held the collector's compass outstretched as she walked. With every step, as the compass drew the star dust from the earth, from the moss, from the very air, the glimmering glade began to truly glimmer again. The dull, drab patches of moss regained their emerald sparkle. Faint, ethereal flowers, previously unseen, unfurled their glowing petals along the path. The subtle chiming sounds, which had been almost silent, began to resonate with a renewed chorus of delicate music. It was like watching a muted painting slowly regain its vibrant colors. Elara felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Every speck of star dust gathered by the compass was a tiny piece of magic returned to its rightful place. The glimmering glade hummed with a revitalized energy, and the air crackled with a gentle, joyful spark. The Lumina Moth danced excitedly around her, its own light pulsing with happiness. They were close to the Moonpetal Meadow now, their final stop before returning to the Great Weaver. The compass in Elara's hand felt warm and heavy, filled with the golden essence of the returning stars. Chapter 14. The Moonpetal Meadow's Brightest Glow. Finally, as twilight began to fall, Elara and the Lumina Moth reached the Moonpetal Meadow. It was the place where her journey had begun, where she had first noticed the dimming magic. Her heart pounded with a mixture of anticipation and joy. She walked straight to the large moonpetal that had lost its glow. It was still somewhat dull, its petals drooping, though a faint, hopeful shimmer now seemed to emanate from its bell-shaped form. Elara held the collector's compass directly over it. The compass let out a powerful, sustained hum, and a magnificent cascade of golden star dust erupted from the moonpetal. It wasn't just a few specks. It was a swirling, glittering vortex of light, rising high into the twilight sky before being drawn into the compass. As the star dust poured out, the moonpetal began to glow with an incredible, vibrant intensity, brighter than any other in the meadow. Its petals unfurled, strong and radiant, its bell-like chime ringing out clearly. And then, as if in response, all the other moon petals in the meadow, which had been subtly brighter since Elara's journey began, pulsed with an even more magnificent light. The entire meadow became a breathtaking sea of shimmering, glowing bells, their gentle ding-dong filling the air with a symphony of magic. Elara felt tears welling in her eyes. She had done it. She had helped restore the moon petals, the first sign of fading magic she had seen. The compass in her hand now pulsed with an immense golden light, almost too bright to look at, completely filled with the gathered star dust. Chapter 15. The Return to the Great Weaver. With the collector's compass glowing brilliantly in her hand, filled to the brim with recovered star dust, Elara and the Lumina Moth made their way back to the Great Weaver's loom. She descended the hidden stairwell, her heart full of triumphant anticipation. The cavern of the Great Weaver felt different now. The air was less heavy, and the loom's rhythm, though still slow, had a touch more strength. Elara approached the magnificent, starlit loom, holding the compass high. "Great Weaver," she announced, her voice strong and clear, "I have gathered the scattered star dust. It is ready to return." As she spoke, the collector's compass pulsed with an astonishing light. Slowly, deliberately, Elara tilted the compass, and a magnificent stream of pure, golden star dust poured forth, swirling upwards towards the loom. It flowed like a river of liquid light, rising and gently settling onto the dim threads of the Great Weaver's loom. As the stardust touched the threads, they began to glow. First, a faint shimmer, then a vibrant, pulsating light. The entire loom began to brighten, thread by thread, until it was once again a glorious tapestry of starlight and energy. The rhythmic thump-thump of the loom grew stronger, faster, becoming a powerful, joyous heartbeat that resonated through the entire cavern. The great weaver was being restored. Chapter 16. The Reweaving and the Gift of Starlight. The cavern was now bathed in the glorious, reawakened light of the great weaver's loom. Threads of pure starlight, once dim and lifeless, now pulsed with vibrant energy, weaving new patterns, creating new constellations of magic. The rhythmic thump-thump of the loom was a joyful melody, a testament to the renewed power of the cosmos. The ancient voice of the great weaver filled the cavern, no longer sighing, but resonant with deep gratitude. You have done well, Elara, child of the woods. You have mended the connection, healed the scattering, and brought the lost starlight home. The whispering woods, and indeed, the stars above, sing your praise. As the last speck of star dust was absorbed by the loom, a single, brilliant thread of pure starlight detached itself from the loom and floated gently towards Elara. It shimmered with all the colors of the rainbow, infused with the essence of newly rewoven stars. It coalesced into a beautiful, delicate necklace with a single, glowing star pendant. This is your gift, Elara, the weaver's voice said, a piece of the rewoven starlight, a reminder of your courage and the magic you hold within. Wear it, and may its light always guide your way and remind you of the interconnectedness of all things. Elara, tears of joy sparkling in her eyes, gently took the necklace. It felt warm against her skin, a tangible piece of the magic she had helped restore. The Lumina Moth, its light pulsing with joy, landed on her shoulder, as if sharing in her triumph. Chapter 17. A Restored World and a Fulfilling Dream. Elara and the Lumina Moth returned home under a sky more brilliant than she had ever seen. The stars seemed to twinkle with a renewed vigor, and the moon, a full orb now, cast a silvery glow that danced through the trees. She walked through the Moonpetal Meadow, and her heart swelled with happiness. Every single moonpetal glowed with an extraordinary brilliance, their gentle ding-dong echoing like a chorus of tiny bells. The glimmering glade sparkled with unprecedented vibrancy. The sleepy willow swayed gracefully by the river of whispers, its branches rustling with contented dreams. Even the grumbling grotto seemed to hum with a gentle, joyful resonance. The whispering woods was more vibrant, more magical, than it had ever been. Elara lay in her bed that night, the starlight necklace glowing softly against her chest. She looked out her window at the now brilliant Moonpetal Meadow, and the vast, sparkling canopy of stars. She thought of her journey, the whispers of the wind, the guidance of the Lumina Moth, the wisdom of the great weaver. She had listened to the woods, and in doing so, she had helped to heal it. As her eyelids grew heavy, she felt a deep sense of peace and contentment. The magic of the whispering woods, so carefully nurtured, would continue to thrive, connected once more to the endless, shimmering expanse of stars. And Elara, the girl who listened to the whispers, knew she would always be a part of its wondrous story. Sleep now, dear dreamers. May your own dreams be filled with shimmering moon petals, ancient trees, and the soft, guiding light of a Lumina Moth. Remember, even the smallest among us can embark on the grandest adventures and bring light back to the world. Good night.